Hi, I'm Matt with State of Flex here with a review for Star Trek, the original series, Season 1. A couple days ago, I got a chance to revisit Star Trek the Motion Picture in the theaters through Fathom Events. They brought the 4K restoration to cinemas, and it fed that hunger that I had for Star Trek, and it made me want to go back to where it all started. And for my money, Star Trek Season 1 is the greatest individual season of any Star Trek TV show. It had the most consistently good, if not great, episodes. And even though it succumbs to the trappings of the era it came out, culminating often with a fist fight or a laser battle of some kind, what you got were exceptional little 50-minute morality plays. And it's because of these little morality plays that it feels ever so relevant today. Now, maybe everything that's being tackled is something that is relevant now, and maybe it's something that we've moved beyond, but it's stories that we can use and consume and dissect that really keep us invested in these stories even to this very day. And it's because of Season 1 and to some extent the first half of Season 2 that the show is as relevant as it is. We're entering a new era, or in the process of being in the middle of a new era of Star Trek. And when they started to strip the bare necessities away from what kind of wasn't working, they settled back down into the vibe that you got with early Star Trek. And I think that is for pretty basic reasons. But those are thoughts that I'll get to eventually when I cover that. I wanted to go through and watch many Star Trek seasons. I'm not going to give a review for every season of every show, but I thought, particularly with the original series and probably the Enterprise-based stories, I will do individual reviews, as well as the entire catalog of films, because why not? I enjoy them, and let's get to it. So, what makes Star Trek great? I think the answer comes in three, and that three is Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And what you get with that is Captain Kirk is your everyman. He may be terribly handsome, and he may be flamboyant while also being traditionally heroic in the very gung-ho cowboys 60s sense of the word. But one of the characteristics that character has is almost every episode Kirk is faced with a moral dilemma. And who does he have on his proverbial shoulder but an angel and a devil? On the one side, you have Bones McCoy, doctor. He is a man that even has wings on his little emblem on his shirt. He is a visual kind of representation of an angelic person for what is a doctor, but not those closest to a higher being, in that they can give life and ease pain, and strip that life from you should you need it to end swiftly. They're your saviors, in a sense, especially aboard a cruising starship like this. And then you have Spock, who is evocative of the devil with his slanted eyebrows, his pointy ears, and in the original conception of him, he was going to have red skin. That kind of fell by the wayside in an effort to humanize him, which came as notes from the production network. But you have the angel and the devil. But interestingly, the people who are the voices influencing him, they've kind of switched their roles. the traditionally angelic character doesn't try to influence the person by uh, breaking down the base elements into logical statements. No, he asks the captain to give to his passions, and he is motivated by his emotions and how he feels and what feels right and good. And then you have Spock, evocative of the devil, but speaking in stone cold logic. And so you have the devil and angel, but they've kind of inverted themselves. It's really quite neat and clever, and their influence on the captain provides a pivot point wherein Kirk acts and reacts to any given situation. It's those three that really set the tone for this show, and it's at its best when those three are working together. You have that. I want to touch on, because I've already talked about these three characters, the actors who embody them. William Shatner has a fun, impish quality. He is a rogue and a rapscallion and is having fun. He has this Peter Pan quality, which they touch on repeatedly in the features. But he never does it in sacrifice of his character's intelligence. You believe his character to be intelligent, and you believe him to be in command of any given situation that he is in. Part of that comes with the, I guess, again, trappings of the era within the show was produced, but I think a lot of it was just stylistic choice on Shatner's part. And you can watch select episodes of Star Trek or the films and watch Shatner's performance in that and juxtapose it with some of his other famous characters, say T.J. Hooker or his character from Boston Legal. And it's not the same character. He gives a very Kirk performance when he's being Kirk, and he's sort of embodied this Kirk-esque quality in his later years as his performance as William Shatner that you see in interviews and stuff. He's a fascinating man, very troubling individual at times and problematic, but also a person who I think has honestly learned and grown throughout his life. Especially if you read his books. He's a good writer, or he hires good writers to be his mouthpiece. But Shatner is a fascinating individual, and I absolutely adore his persona, I guess. As I say, he touches on some problematic things here and there, and he's very much of an era that's gone by. That said, as great as Shatner is as Kirk, you have DeForest Kelley as Bones, a person who is able to hit every single comedic beat so effortlessly that it's portrayed as drama within every scene, yet he gets the strongest laughs in the shows, in the movies. He is perfect. He is absolutely perfect, and I think he would have been the shining star of the show along with William Shatner were it not for Leonard Nimoy as Spock. Nimoy did so much to bring Spock to life. He made that character far more than any of the other actors really brought to their character. I would say he, along with Gene Roddenberry and DC Fontana, are the three main people responsible for making Star Trek what it is to this very day. They are the most influential figures, and long after Star Trek will have moved beyond its relevancy and become just like a ghost of the past, the one thing that will maintain is the character of Spock. He is so very much the embodiment of what the show is, and he became an icon, more than Captain Kirk, more than the Enterprise itself, which is a beautiful character just in the ship. And that's all because of Nimoy. He takes something that could be very robotic and in all honesty, a lot of other performances of Vulcan characters or androids within the rest of this franchise do come off more robotic than Nimoy. Nimoy has a humanity in balance and out of balance with him at all times, and you get it in his inflections, his mannerisms, his facial configurations at any given time. It's a stunning performance that's easy to look past, but it's so magnetic that it's almost impossible to look beyond it. It's a great performance, and Leonard Nimoy really shaped the show. I mentioned Gene Roddenberry, who, another problematic figure, but for what it's worth, got the show to be what it is, and he wanted to hit these cultural touchstones as openly and honestly as he could. Now, some of this is dated, because we have moved beyond the touchstones that he was commenting on, and some of it comes off as downright problematic or offensive, because we've moved so far beyond it. But the show is relevant because a lot of what is in this series, largely because of him and his wants, is relevant because he's presenting these 50-minute morality plays, and the moral construction of each individual scene still works and functions in our history today. So I don't want to sell Roddenberry short, but I also don't want to give him as much credit as I want to give the next person, which is DC Fontana. She is the writer responsible for really shaping Spock along with Leonard Nimoy. She is responsible for many generations of Star Trek. She contributed greatly to the original series, to some extent to the Next Generation, and to the animated series. She shaped this show into what people love most, and she had her hand in a lot of the best episodes. I urge you to go look at her IMDb profile and see the episodes that she had a hand in writing, and you will be like gobsmacked that her name is not synonymous with Star Trek as much as Gene Roddenberry's, every bit as much as Gene Roddenberry's. Okay. So I sort of talked about why the original series is kind of my favorite. Why this season? This season has far and away the best episodes of any individual season. In fact, out of my 5 favorite episodes of the original series, it has 3 of them. And I think I'll just go through and list off some episodes really worth watching, point by point. You have Where No Man Has Gone Before, which I'm going to do an individual review of as well, because I love that episode, and I'm going to highlight each season's best episode in its own video. So stay tuned for that. You have Charlie X, which is a fun little one about a kid who has special abilities to make people do things or whatnot. It's sort of a play on the Twilight Zone episode as well. Of the little boy who makes people do things. The Naked Time, which is an episode I really like. You get to see a lot of the characters kind of flourish and have fun and be funny. Star Trek can be very funny at times, and that's something that is oft overlooked. This one is one of the stronger episodes to showcase how awesome Nichelle Nichols is as Uhura. She doesn't get a chance to shine very often, but when she does, it's truly breathtaking, and she's great in that episode. You have The Enemy Within, which is kind of edges on camp now because Shatner probably, because the show was still finding its footing and camp was very popular of that era when this came out. Enemy Within has Shatner overacting like you read about as he is as Kirk is confronted with the split identity of Kirk, and the two Kirks meet. This is an episode written by Richard Matheson. One of the things I didn't touch on is this show is great because of its writing. They got some of the top talent in pulp science fiction literature and horror novels and stuff like that to contribute to the show. You got great writers like Robert Bloch and Harlan Ellison, who we'll touch on in a brief minute, as well as Richard Matheson, who's one of my favorite writers, and he wrote this episode, and it's quite a good one. Then What Little Girls Are Made Of is a good one that kind of showcases Nurse Chapel. She very rarely gets to set center stage, but she gets quite a bit of screen time in that. The Cobra Maneuver is really kind of engaging and interesting episode. Then you have the two-part Menagerie, which is the original pilot, which was called The Cage, recut into a two-part mini-movie, if you will. You can really watch that as the original Star Trek motion picture, and you'd be better off because the actual Star Trek motion picture is hot garbage. Balance of Terror is spectacular. It's really that Balance of Terror and Space Seed that if you merge those two together, what movie do you get? You get Wrath of Khan. Shore Leave is really fun, and you get to see all the characters kind of be fun and whatnot, similar to Naked Time. Arena is a great episode with a shocking conclusion. That one's heavily action-based. It's too bad that they were limited to their budget that they had, because the Gorn really deserves to live and breathe better on that screen. But looking past the dated special effects, that's a strong written story, well acted, and you can't help the silly costumes. Space Seed is our introduction to Khan, and one of the stronger episodes of the first season. It's become more relevant because of Wrath of Khan, but still, it might not be in my top 5 favorite episodes of the original season, but it's probably just outside in the number 6 spot. Then you have The Devil in the Dark, which is my second favorite episode of the season. It is so good, and it touches on elements of horror, which is something that doesn't often get brought into Star Trek, but when it does, it's often done quite well, and none better than this episode, which has a brilliant ending and a startling humanity to this story. I absolutely loved it. Errand of Mercy really gets us our first gateway into the Klingon ideals. City on the Edge of Forever is the most famous episode, and my third favorite episode of the original series. I mentioned that the Season 1 has 3 of my 5 favorite episodes of the entire series. Where No Man Has Gone Before, Devil in the Dark, and City on the Edge of Forever rest in my number 1, number 4, and number 5 places respectively. They are all fantastic stories, but City on the Edge of Forever kind of takes the cake because it's a fun time travel story. And it has great performances, especially from Shatner. And certainly Nimoy as well, and Joan Collins as our special guest star. Weirdly enough, it's DeForest Kelley who kind of overacts that episode, but which is unusual for him. But City on the Edge of Forever is the one that will kind of always be remembered as the great episode of the original series. And though I think there are better episodes, they're not wrong to think that, because it is very good, very well written. It hits you emotionally, and it plays with time, and time travel stories are quite fun, and this one utilizes time travel to present an interesting moral quandary, and it's quite great as Kirk grapples with his place in the story. So yeah, the original season is great. My favorite episode of any Star Trek TV show is Where No Man Has Gone Before. So as I said, I will do an individual review of that. You have that to look forward to. But let me know what you think of Star Trek the original series. Sure, it's dated. Its special effects can be laughed at, though the remasters that they did were sprucing up the special effects with Enterprise technology and stuff like that. Really helps like marry this show with later movies and other TV shows and stuff like that. It does great work, and I think if you were to go in and spend even more money to cosmetically touch up some of the other maybe prosthetics and stuff like that, you'd have a like a show that's hard to pick on anymore. And I think the other thing that really dates this show, more than some of its conceptual ideas and stuff like that, is the music. The score sounds very soap opera-y, I guess, and very much a product of its time. If you strip the score away and put a score that's a little more modern on top of it, I'm convinced that most people would say that this is the best series of any of them, because the writing is there. The writing is that good, and these performers are so good in their roles. I didn't even touch on George Takei as Sulu, or Scotty, James Doohan as Scotty, or Margelle Barrett as Nurse Chapel. They're great. Everybody comes together and serves their role and their purpose. Yaman Rand is also great, and she has a heavy lean in the first half of this season and then kind of fades away until the movies start happening. But just because something is dated doesn't make it irrelevant, and I think Star Trek is proof positive of that. So yeah, let me know what you think. What was your favorite individual season of this show or future shows? Just let me know. I'm curious to see. I know a lot of people are really into the back half of Next Generation. I happen to be a person that thinks the first half is kind of better than the back half, but I get why people kind of like the back half. So yeah, drop down in the comments below and let me know, who is your favorite Star Trek character? For me, it's gotta be Kirk. Thanks for watching. Bye.